And I wanted to cover this because I think this is actually a ray of bright light and a breath of fresh air. Without further ado, hot off the press from the Chicago Tribune, from Robert McAlpin, Cannabis Research Institute opens in Chicago looking to dig deep into marijuana. Nearly a year and a half after it was announced, the Cannabis Research Institute is getting operations underway in Chicago with the goal of studying, amongst other things, how marijuana could help or harm people. The Institute's leaders hope to break new ground in finding medical uses for cannabis, possibly for the treatment of cancer. Researchers also can help with the creation of a new state reference lab to check for accuracy in the testing of commercial pot. And they could track down a virus that threatens to ruin crops. The research group is making use of a new lab in a former COVID-19 testing facility in the Illinois Medical Center campus on the west side, harnessing DNA sequencing equipment formerly used to test for COVID-19. But at least for now, the Institute's lab will not be in its planned new office. The headquarters for its parent organization, the University of Illinois Systems Discovery Partners Institute, is proposed for a vacant lot on the 62-acre South Loop site where the Chicago White Sox also want to build a new stadium. Construction of the headquarters was expected this year and should start soon, officials said, but likely may not be completed until 2027. Meanwhile, state leaders have been unwilling to give the Sox money for the stadium, despite the developer of the 78-related Midwest installing a new sodded baseball field on the site to spur interest in the White Sox plan. For now, the director of the Cannabis Research Institute, Reggie Gallardino, I always mispronounce his name, but shout out to Reggie, he is super cool, is proceeding elsewhere. He's using a 3-year, $7 million grant from the Illinois Department of Human Services to get started and applying for research grants from other governmental and nonprofit organizations. It's quite possible that there will be some type of cannabis that can address any number of maladies, he said. However, there are also potential harms to cannabis. The Cancer Research Institute is doing the research to answer some of these questions and move the conversation forward with a sound scientific basis. Before coming to Chicago, Reggie used his PhD in molecular genetics and biochemistry as a patent scientist. He was president of Steep Hill Incorporated, a cannabis testing, and chief science officer later at hemp company Front Range Bioscience in Boulder, Colorado. He's worked with early companies such as Charlotte's Web, producing products high in CBD, the non-psychoactive compound to treat various conditions. One child that Steep Hill worked with had an aggressive form of cancer in her head. Researchers found a hemp extract that Reggie said helped the child and several others who became cancer-free. And now he hopes to partner with Northern Illinois University on further research into cannabis to inhibit cancer growth. He also plans to hunt for hop latent virus, a long-time issue with hop plants used to be making beer that's recently become running rampant in cannabis. Recently as in like the last 4 or 5 years. He will advise on establishing a state reference lab that will check the accuracy of private reports. Studies have found discrepancies amongst lab reports and actual levels of potencies and contaminants, like what we just covered earlier today, including mold in legal weed. The Cannabis Research Institute was formed in 2022 with the state and the Cannabis Regulation Oversight Officer, the U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration, and the City of Chicago. The institute will not take money from cannabis companies, thank you, but is seeking funding through grants from the state or federal government and groups such as the National Institute of Health. Reggie hopes to partner with other research groups to reach a prominent status in cannabis research along the lines of centers in California, Colorado, and Israel. If anybody can do it, I think this guy can, but I'm super biased in favor of him. He hopes to get a waiver from the DEA to use cannabis produced within the state for research rather than having to use DEA swag approved facility elsewhere. The proposed rescheduling of marijuana to a less restrictive status could make research much faster and easier. Cannabis research Dr. Sue Sisley, love her, congratulated Illinois on making a significant investment in the field, but warned that funding is just the first step. It can take years, she said, to get approvals at the glacial speed of the FDA and U.S. Drug Enforcement Administration to obtain cannabis research into clinical trials on humans. She would know. She's the founder and principal investigator of the Scottsdale Research Institute. Michigan approved $40 million for cannabis research in 2021, but 3 years later, federal obstacles have blocked many of those studies. While lab research is a start, she said human research is essential, and it's important that funding goes to research rather than university overhead. Good point there, Sue. I like what you did there. It's important to do real-world study on humans to advance questions people have about how to use cannabis. So why did I choose this? Well, we've been talking about all the rescheduling, descheduling, what that's going to do. And in the meantime, people like Sue and Reggie have continued to push forward in spite of the ambiguity and uncertainty on a federal level. I've known Reggie since 2016. I can't say we're close buddies or we golf or send each other cards for holidays, but he has always been one of the brightest minds, in my opinion, in regulated cannabis, and seems thoroughly committed to advancing both the art, science, and understanding of all of the different cannabinoids. I was lucky enough to hang out and rub shoulders with him at Canatech in Tel Aviv many years back, and I haven't met anybody quite as keen as Reggie. And so I'm 2 thumbs up. I'm super bullish on what he can do over there. And I love the idea of government funding versus cannabis revenue from cannabis companies. This is Yarrow Kubrin, High at 9 News. I'd like to hear what my other guest pundits and panelists think and feel about this article today.
I have thoughts.
Go for it. You still play professional baseball? Crazy.
Right. Shout out to Sue Cicely and her work. That's amazing. I will push back, though, and I was very excited to hear this article. I saw the headline this morning, and I'm like, somebody's going to cover it. I don't need to touch it. I will say my stomach hurt a little bit when I heard who was doing it. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to insult your boy Reggie, but if you look at the track record of companies that he's been with, including Charlotte's Web, most especially Charlotte's Web, for those of you that don't know the history of CBD-containing weed and Ringo's gift and the fact that it was somebody's life's work that they wanted to never be commercialized, like this must have been Mathieu St. Germain's, hidden father from somewhere, because this was his life's work. He created Ringo's gift. Then some guy named Rye gave it to the Stanley brothers. They tried to patent it, lock it down, and make it extremely expensive, and also bullied parents who couldn't afford it for their children. You don't love your kids enough unless you get on this list and you give us ridiculous amounts of money. That is not what this plant was intended to do. That is not what that man's life work should have done. And I think that, yes, Reggie has a genius brain. That is a beautiful thing, unless you sell it to the wrong people and they use it to lock down an industry, create patents, and try to shut people out from medicine that will change their lives. So that is my only pushback. Science is amazing. We definitely have only been able to do preclinical trials because obviously the federal illegality of cannabis does not allow us to do actual clinical trials on a federally illegal substance, right? But I think we need to be very careful and tread very lightly that we don't go down the MAPS path as they're doing the same thing of this is good, this is for the people. Oops, shit, we did it for the wrong people. Now it's locked down, and now what we've done is shut out an industry of people who do care and given everything and the key to the kingdom to people who are using this as a cash grab. Shutting up.
Wow. Matthew, you have a anything on this?
I just, Annie, I love you, but I just have to poke at the holes in the logic. Like, I don't see how one can be a capitalist and then want some sort of government or other intervention when people are really exercising their capitalist rights and doing it to such a high degree. Like, getting a patent on a medicine and then charging exorbitant prices for it and cornering the market is the very nature of capitalism. And maybe I would invite you, Jenny, to look at the Swedish, Norwegian, and Denmark governments. And I would invite that maybe you are, in fact, a social democrat. What you really want to see is a modified and or limited capitalist system with government price controls and government interventions that basically blunt the fangs of capitalism and provide for the lesser among us. And I think that what we see, if anybody, and I invite everybody watching this show to Google Sweden, Norway, Finland, Denmark, see these companies, what they have is robust capitalism, robust industry, free college for not only all their citizens, but citizens of every country of the world, a low recidivism rate, a very low imprisonment rate, free health care for everyone, government controls on monopolies and pricing, and really, other than the horrible fucking weather, pretty much paradise on earth.
Just that.
I think there's a conflation. I think there's a conflation here before we finally properly identify Jenny Dills' political affiliations now that she expressed them without party flag, which is that you guys are conflating Reggie and his CV with some of the decisions and positions of companies that he worked for. And so as impressive as Reggie is, as learned as he is, as many initials are at the end of his name, we can't say that the track record of companies that he works for is his track record. And so I think that this gentleman has been in the industry a long time. He's wicked smart. I think he's been laser focused on advancing the science. And I love the idea that government will fund research and that this doesn't need to be borne on the backs of thin margin cannabis companies in order for us to have the opportunity to create further data.
No, 100%. And I wasn't trying to conflate, which is why I said shout out to his work. And this amazing work is phenomenal unless you do it for the wrong people. The government paying for it also makes me wonder who owns this at the end of the day, right? Are we doing this for the government who is then going to kind of lock things down? Because we know that they're not going to probably approve cannabis as a smokable, right? Because you can't do that. It's just not how it's not how the system is set up. So I don't know. I think we'll see, and I think it'll be really interesting. And I know you guys really so badly want me to make a switch of my party. I'm not going to do it. I view cannabis and I view a couple of things as very outlying industries. So like this, I have a different heart for. For you guys that know me, and we won't bore you and go into it. I spent a tremendous amount of time in the Colorado industry, which is largely medicinally focused. I got the pleasure of working with and helping families with sick children. My heart for this industry is different than my capitalist inclinations.
And I think you already switched.
You
already switched. You admitted it. We don't need you to admit it any further. We have it on tape.
I'm still a registered Republican, and it's just fine when you vote Trump. But when it comes to cannabis, I have a different heart for this industry than I do for other industries, and my capitalist intentions are kind of swayed here a little bit when we're looking at, what we really should be focusing on, the children we should be thinking of, which is the cancer kids, the kids with epilepsy, the ones who need this plant medicine to have normal lives.
A switch hitter.
Look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Still not letting you hit though, Yarrow. Damn it.
Damn.
Yarrow, did it say how much money the government was going to fund for this research?
Yes. So this particular, Reggie got a $7 million grant, and then Illinois stood up a $40 million grant in 2021. I doubt that all of that has been deployed yet.
But
here's the thing about government: you show me your budget, and I'll show you your priorities. And when people put money towards ideas, things have a greater chance of happening.
Hold on a second. So you're telling me they got $7 million from the federal government and they got $40 million from the state government?
I don't know if the funding that Reggie and this organization got was from federal or state, and I don't know whether the $7 million they got was a part of the $40 million or the $40 million was an additional funding towards research.
Got it. Okay. All right.
Just wanted to mention too, just seeing stuff in the chats and as well as what we're talking about. I think we get confused at the difference between capitalism, free market, and social democracy, right? Because you can't actually be a caring capitalist, and people who think that, I think that what you're actually showing is cognitive dissonance and or your own lack of education. I, for one, have actually read deeply into what capitalism is and capitalism versus the free market, and I would really suggest that other people do so. Again, what I always say is, if we look at these Norwegian countries, what we see is social democracy is what people who say they're carrying capitalists are actually advocating for. Social democracy is when we as a society or tribe institute holds and collars and boundaries against capitalism, eviscerating our society. And for all of those who claim to be pure capitalists or libertarians, you're not, unless you only walk everywhere. If you use roads, you're a socialist.
Oh,
house is on fire and you call the fire department, you're a socialist.
Stop it.
Well, again, Jason, socialism is when society puts money into a coffer for the benefit of everyone. Our tax money that we all pay
that's called the
to
public
making
good.
and maintaining roads. Yes, that's actually how the roads work, Jason.
It's a public
actually
good.
how the roads work.
It's not socialism. No, it's not.
It is actually socialism by the very
it's not.
definition of it. Yes.
No, it's not.
Speaking of monies in coffers, Ben LeBouvin spent $1.99 to make sure that everybody here knows.
Yarrow, I'm getting ready to do that as soon as I go into my story.
Wait, just give me one second. Let me finish my thought real quick. You cannot just say, well, you can do whatever you want, but in just saying no without providing an alternate definition or any definition or reasoning as to why it is not, then you're just talking out your ass, and it's okay. We can all agree that socialism is a necessary part of a democratic system if we wish it to not turn into a capitalist oligarchy and retrench into the Middle Ages. Where people
that's where socialism will take us, is into the dark ages. But nonetheless, we got to keep this train rolling. I'm going to roll into this final story for you guys, and I want to start it off with a super chat and thank Mr. Ben LeBone for his super chat. We were super appreciated. He says, "Enjoy tomorrow's presidential debate." And my next story goes right into that, you guys.